Welcome everybody. Today in part 4 we're going to finish the motor off. First thing I've done was ripped apart the oil pump, and turns out it's an aftermarket one, and everything looks awesome. Look at that. That'll be fine. It's got to pack it with Vaseline to help get oil pressure on first startup, because you can't prime these like a small block Chevy or something like that. But yeah, awesome. Now our pump's all back together, we can now throw it on the motor. Next to go on is the timing cover and the sump. You have to make sure that all these faces here are perfectly clean. I've punched in a new front seal, and let's get to it. Well, now with our sump on, we can flip it over and finally pull our cylinder heads on. Before I put the cylinder heads on for their final time, we're going to put a couple rags in cylinder number 2 and cylinder number 5, because they move up and down at the same position in the stroke. And we can throw our heads on without head gaskets to stop the crank from spinning, so we can do that nut up there, or bolt up really tight, and then we can paint it all. Now the balance are all torqued up, we can start taping it up and prep soling it for paint. I've got the motor all taped up and outside, so we don't get any overspray and anything important inside, and let's paint it. Motor's now back inside, and paint somewhat dried a little bit, and now we can take all the tape off. Well guys, that is looking pretty awesome. It's starting to look like a proper motor. Don't worry about the rocker covers over there that we used to paint on, they'll get scuffed up and sprayed silver. But that is looking mint. Now we just got to install our cylinder heads for real. Now we're just going to rip our cylinder heads back off again and get our rags out of the bores. A few crumbs fell out of the water jacket to the head. Well guys, we can now get ready to put our heads on. Something I do like to do with these, just for extra insurance, is just put a little smear of silicone where the water jackets are. Just the absolute smallest amount, so just absolute almost nothing. Might make it a pain to take them off next time, but it makes sure it won't leak. And grab our head gasket. On the dowels, and you can see here these holes were for a on the earlier model Holden V8, so 253308. This is a VS 304, so it's a later model, but similar design. They had an extra boss here which would hold down the cylinder head, but they found out they were completely useless as it would crack right there. And throw our cylinder head on. There we go. Now, unlike the old school 5 litres and the old 253308, the bolt holes were open to the water galley, but these ones here are blind, so we don't need to use any thread sealer. But I do like to use a little bit of oil to try and get an accurate torque on the threads. This is just normal engine oil. And for some reason, I don't know why, on the 5 litres, 304s, they have one Allen key head bolt. The rest of them are normal hex. Don't know why they did that. There'll be a reason for it, I don't know what it is. Alright, there we go. So that's one on, and now just to do the other side. Well guys, that's both cylinder heads on, so now we can start putting our lifters and rocker gear in. As we are reusing the standard lifters, we have to make sure that every single one that comes out of the motor goes back to its original spot, and they're all positioned in the way they came out, so it should be all good. Well, now at this point in time we've got everything we need to drop our manifold on. And along these two rails here, along the china walls, we'll be using silicone instead of the cork gaskets supplied, so they can't push themselves out. Well, how freaking awesome is that? Manifold on, rocker covers left, and all the other bits. Before I've put the rocker covers on, I've rolled the motor over to where I want it to fire, and with the rocker covers off I can see when it's on its compression stroke, and then I've dropped the distributor into where I want it to fire and marked number 1 to make it easier for myself when it's in the car, and let's get to putting the rest of it back together. So I've just painted the rocker covers up and a few other things, but now we can get our accessories on, and throttle body and thermostat housing, all those little bits. Let's get to it. Well guys, that's the engine done. I've still got an oil filter to get and spark plugs and things like that still have to go on, but I'll chuck the oil filter on, but things like the fuel rail I'll keep off so it's easier to install the motor into the